All right, let's get rolling here. First of all, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. I am cautiously optimistic that in the very near future, we will be able to do one of these seminars in person and not virtually. I know it's convenient to be virtual. It just seems more natural to talk to a group of faces than my computer. But we're going to do our best here. So thanks again for joining us. Some of you on the call are current Nulty clients. We just want to thank you again for your business. We truly enjoy working with our clients. Some of you on the call have probably had interaction with somebody from our team, which is why you're on this call this morning. We hope in the near future we get a chance to work with you as well. So my name is Michael Stangl. I am a commercial lines advisor. Joining us or also on the call is Chad Bonner. Chad is also a commercial lines advisor, and Sue Davidson is a commercial lines account manager. Sue and the other account managers are the true brains behind our team. If you've worked with Sue in the past, you know she's a rock star. So we appreciate her help here this morning. OSHA, and we're going to dive into a number of topics here this morning, but they seem to be very active right now. And Chad, you've actually had a couple experiences here lately, or your clients have, that you've been involved with. Can you just share and touch on those experiences a little bit before we dive into this?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. These stories, I think, kind of shape this webinar and kind of what we're going to get into. But I had a recent situation at one of our clients who's a manufacturer, about 80-ish employees. And what happened in the situation actually had to do with COVID. So I think it really emphasizes the importance of documentation surrounding COVID. And they've actually come up with their own form to detail exactly what's going on with every employee that they have regarding COVID. But in this particular situation, they had an employee that had called in sick. The individual called in sick on a Wednesday. He started having symptoms on a Tuesday night. Called in sick on a Wednesday, decides to get a test for COVID on a Wednesday afternoon, gets the results back Thursday, and he was COVID positive. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was out of work that entire period of time. Now, during that period of time, HR documented, like I said, exactly who his close contacts were, his absences, and did a really, really good job with all of those details. Unfortunately, that individual was put in the hospital on a Saturday, and then very unfortunately died on a Monday. Now, the employee in this situation, we didn't know that this individual was in the hospital on Saturday and had eventually died in the middle of the night on a Monday. And this is where OSHA comes in, because we actually had someone from his family call OSHA and make a complaint, which generated an unannounced visit to this manufacturer to do an investigation and determine if it was a work-related illness. And OSHA came in, interviewed all the employees, reviewed all the documentation, and determined that this was a work-related illness, which the employer completely disagrees with. So as a result of that inspection, this employer was fined for record keeping. And the main fine in this situation was notification upon an employee's work-related death. And it was a really unfortunate circumstance, but because they did not notify OSHA within 8 hours of this employee dying, they were fined and are now going through a substantial appeal process with thousands of dollars in attorney bills. But it just makes me think about all the different companies that we work with and the importance of the documentation that they have. When OSHA comes in and does an inspection like that, that's unannounced, the results of that inspection are compared to your documentation prior to the inspection. So it's really, really important that we're doing everything we possibly can on the front end to help ourselves in these situations. So with that said, I think maybe we should go into some of the nuts and bolts of the seminar, Michael.
Okay. Today, we've got people visiting or on the call from working with companies of all shapes and sizes, Chad. And it seems that OSHA determines the size of a company based on the number of employees that it has. Is that true? And can you talk a little bit more on that?
It is true.
Do we have the screen sharing ability at this point?
Unfortunately, we do not have the screen sharing ability at this point. I'm trying to share my screen and it's disabled. Okay, here we go. Now I have it. I'm in, and let's start from the beginning here. All right, sorry about that delay. So yeah, as you said, Michael, I mean, that's how we're determining who needs to report electronically. And obviously that's the reason we're having this seminar. March 2nd is the reporting date for OSHA. And this slide really highlights who needs to report. So 250 and over, you need to report. If you're between 20 and 250, only the high hazard industries need to report in that situation. So we'll kind of get into that detail and who falls in that classification. Now, under 20 employees, you do not have to report. And again, this is electronic reporting by March 2nd. But if you're under 10, you don't have to keep a OSHA log. So between 10 and 20, you have to keep those same OSHA 300, 300A, and 301. You have the same posting requirements as all of the big companies, but you don't have to do the electronic reporting. So those kind of give you the parameters for the electronic reporting piece.
And when it comes to calculating the number of employees, there seems to be a lot of confusion. For example, part-time employees, seasonal employees. Can you touch on that a little bit, and how do we determine actually how many employees we have as an employer?
Yeah, so this actually is a little easier than some of the other federal regulations. There's some out there that make it a little difficult. FMLA is a good example, and we talk about COBRA and having partial employees. OSHA makes it really easy. If you have a full-time employee, a part-time employee, a seasonal employee, temporary employees, they all count. So whatever your peak number of employees are, that's going to be the number to determine if you need to be reporting your OSHA documentation. Now, there are some small exceptions out there. I took a look at the list of participants that we have. It doesn't look like many would be in this exception area. So I would imagine anyone on this call would probably be within that 20 to 50 or 250 and above and would have to report online.
Thank you. So none of our family farms are sitting in today, apparently, besides you, Chad. But hey, what about how OSHA requirements or who has to submit electronically? Obviously, this slide is touching on that. You talked about the high hazard industries, if you will. Some of the people on this call might argue that, hey, yeah, I might be in this industry, but I don't feel it's high hazard. Obviously, we don't get to make that determination. OSHA does. And if you could just kind of touch on that a tiny bit, Chad.
Yeah, so your NICS code is what determines whether you have to submit your electronic log or not. So here you see an actual illustration from OSHA's website on those that are responsible for reporting. And I think the first four really kind of grabbed my attention. I mean, agriculture, utilities, construction, manufacturing, and wholesale. I mean, that covers a huge number of people on this call today. So I would tell you that the majority of people in that 20 to 250 are going to fall on this list somewhere, and they are going to be responsible for reporting your information to OSHA. Yeah, so I'll take that a step further in talking about employee size. So we talked about employee size and the breakdown of who's responsible to report. When OSHA looks at the reporting requirements, they require reporting by establishment. And establishment has a specific definition. And if you have a number of small locations spread out over a large area, then you may not be responsible for reporting. And I think a perfect example of that is we have a client of mine that is a fast food restaurant, has 30 locations spread out between 3 different states. None of the establishments or locations has 20 employees. They're all less than that. So they're not responsible for reporting online. Now, if you're a single manufacturer with 100 employees, obviously you would be. So it just depends on, the size of your organization, the proximity of the locations, and, that determines whether you're going to have to report or not. So after this call, if there's any kind of confusion on, hey, do I have to report or not? You have a unique situation and you want to contact Michael, Sue, or myself, we'd be happy to help you kind of review those regulations, determine, the size of your establishment, and determine if, you need to be reporting online.
Yeah, and thanks, Chad, for touching on that too. Everybody on this call, we will send out or share this presentation via email after the call later today, along with some contact information. So should you guys have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to one of us. Chad, what about all the different forms? I'm confused. I can't be the only one on this form or on this call that gets confused with all the various 300, 300A, 301, What's going on with these different forms? How do they differentiate? What am I required to post? Can you share that information with us?
Yeah, so Michael and I had a laugh earlier this morning, actually. We were talking about the things that we're going to talk about, and he put all kinds of different 300, 348, 398, and was making a joke. And I said, well, I don't see all these different forms, but it is difficult to understand if you're not familiar with the 300A, 301, and 300. But basically, the way the forms work, if you have a work-related illness or injury, the first form that you're going to fill out is that 301. That's the individual injury or illness report. You see it on your screen right there. From that information, you're going to take that to your form 300, which is your log that you're going to keep track of all the injuries throughout the year. And with that log, it's then summarized and names removed and put on your 300A. And your 300A is what you're going to be posting. There's a requirement. Again, we saw in the numbers at the beginning of the seminar that this be hung up, actual paper copy of this be put in an area of your business that everyone can see. And it's going to have a summary of your numbers for OSHA incidents for the year. So the 300A is the one that you're going to be sharing.
Okay, so yes, our next point. So I know now that based on my company's size, number of employees, and based on the industry that I serve, I am required now to file certain OSHA forms. Everybody talks about a recordable. What in the world is a recordable?
Yeah, sorry, I jumped ahead of you a little bit there,
okay.
But here on the slide, you see these are what generates a recordable incident, and we would actually log. So death, and remember we talked about death in the very beginning of this. Unfortunately, within 8 hours, we're required to notify OSHA of a work-related death. You'll see a number of other things here: days away from work, transfer to another job within work, or medical treatment. The only exception for this is first aid, and we'll look at that slide in a second. I think the other important thing that sometimes people forget, if we have an inpatient hospital stay, that's the other one where we need to notify OSHA within 24 hours. And whenever we have death or an inpatient hospital stay, what that does is that triggers an OSHA investigation. You're going to have someone that's going to be calling you or knocking on your door, and you better be ready with your forms and be ready with your documentation to answer questions from that OSHA inspector. So that's one of the main triggers of a OSHA inspection. So when we kind of get into the weeds here, and Sue's gonna look at this in a little more detail. We have a great product that Sue's gonna detail on recording and taking all of these forms online and keeping them organized for you. And the system really does that. But this flow chart does a good job showing, okay, what's a recordable incident and what's not. And again, Michael, as he said, we're going to be sending you these slides. So if you need to use this flow chart to determine if it's a recordable or not, feel free to do so.
Yeah, and Chad, down there on the bottom where it says first aid is not a recordable. We did have a panelist or participant ask the question, what is the definition of first aid? Or what is not what is the definition, what is OSHA's definition of first aid?
Yeah, so first aid, there's 14 different things that first aid can be. And these are right off the OSHA website. So if you have one of these situations where you're treating someone with one of these, it's first aid and it's not a recordable incident under OSHA. And I'm not going to go through and read all of these. Again, you can find this on the OSHA website. You can use these slides to help you when you're doing your logs, but it's a pretty, robust list of different things that OSHA says is first aid. So definitely something to have on your desk as an HR person to determine if, we should be recording the injury or not.
This has been pretty amazing. Every time I ask a question, Chad, the next slide actually answers that question. It's almost as if we planned this or staged these questions to the slideshow. I don't know. But what about this March 2nd date that you talked about earlier? Why is that so important?
Yeah, so kind of an interesting part of the beginning story. I had another client that went through an OSHA inspection last week, and they said the inspector came out, was absolutely fantastic. And I said, hey, do you mind sharing the contact information from the inspector? So I called the inspector and I started asking different questions and just, hey, what are the most common fines that you're seeing out there? Are there industries that you're targeting out there? And the number one thing that the OSHA inspector said that he is finding people for right now is not electronically reporting when you're required to. So it's an automatic fine if he shows up and you don't have your reports complete. So I think that really kind of emphasizes the importance of this. But yeah, so we're reporting the previous year's data. So 2021's data is due by March 2nd. And again, we're going to talk about the tool that Nulty Insurance offers to help you out with that.
So why? I guess the question now is, why does OSHA want all this information? It seems like, we get clients that seem to feel that they're poking the sleeping bear by submitting some of this information and making others aware of maybe some injuries that have happened at their place of business. Why does OSHA want this information?
Yeah, so prior to 2016, OSHA really didn't have any way to start to trend and track all of the information on injuries. The only way that they could do that is on-site inspection. And now they're trying to get people to report online so they can start targeting the industries that have, the highest rates of injuries. And that's exactly what the inspector told me on Monday. Hey, this changes by the year. Maybe this year we're going to investigate plastic injection molding. Maybe next year it's construction. But he said that the on-site unannounced investigations or inspections are happening much more now than they did during COVID. So OSHA's initiative for 2022 and moving forward is a lot more on-site, unannounced inspections. So I think it's really, really important that everyone's doing what they're supposed to do in the documentation side.
Yes, the mistakes, you're leading right into it. I don't want to go through these, especially being cautious with our time here. We don't necessarily need to go through these one by one. Again, as we send this slideshow out after the presentation, these are just the 9 most common mistakes, correct, Chad, that are made. I don't know if there's 1 or 2 you want to just point out, but certainly something to take the worry away from those that are posting for their company. Don't worry about it type of slides here.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much time, but the other common mistake that I see all the time is not doing your recordables on your logs within 7 days of the injury. What happens so often is the inspector will come out, need those OSHA logs, and because you haven't done them for the entire year of 2021, you don't have the information to give to the inspector. And I know people aren't doing it because every time an OSHA Logs customer logs an entry, I get a notification of it. So anytime one of my clients logs something, I see it. So when you're entering all of your incidents at the end of the year, you could be unfortunately causing yourself a lot of trouble not doing it one by one. The rest of these, I'll let everyone read as they get the slides, but there are a few things I think is important that, you know, things like printing a paper copy for the 300A when you're posting, those type of things. Just small things that you would think you could post it on an intranet or something where someone can see it, but you still need a paper copy.
Great. So we kind of touched on the who, what, where, when, why, and to dig into the how. You guys may already use OSHA Logs. You may know about OSHA Logs. You may know nothing about OSHA Logs. OSHA Logs is a program that Nulty believes in to the point where we purchased this program that we share free of charge to our clients and prospects. To kind of help dive into this program is Sue Davidson. She's going to do a short overview and kind of show you the bird's eye view of this program. Again, if you have questions afterwards, Sue is the one to reach out to when it comes to running that program. Don't you dare call Chad or I. We will immediately forward you over to Sue. But Sue, I'm going to let you share your screen and take it away.
All right. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So I'm excited to just show you the OSHA Logs product that Chad and Michael were talking about. Real quick, just to show you some of the things. The dashboard here, we have your locations. So we've got the electrical division, just so you know, I put in there with 150 employees. And I also created an executive office, which has 15 employees, just to kind of show you how this works. Let me just move here, sorry. So if I go into viewing the logs here, it will come up and bring up my 2021 policy year, where you're going to see that you can view incidents, you can add your incidences here, and then these are going to be the buttons to push to get the final results. Going into viewing incidents, I created 3 reportables, and as I'm able to create those, if I go into edit here, you'll see it's very intuitive. So off to the right, you're going to question, do I know if this is an injury or illness is recordable? It's going to tell you what those recordables mean. The first aid are going to be in here for you. You'll be able to drill down on those. And which type of injury you should choose. So it walks you through all of this. So all of the information here is going to fill your OSHA form 300. Going back to viewing the incidents here, you'll be able to see here the OSHA 301 form. So if I want to, I've already input my incident. Now I want to print my OSHA 301. I'm just going to click here, and everything that I put in on that prior screen is going to automatically flow into the 301. So it has your incident report there. And the nice thing about this is it also works and collaborates with your workers' comp. So I was able to put in the workers' comp policy information. And if I also have to do a first report of injury and send it into Nulty so that we can file our workers' comp claim, we're just going to click the first report of injury tab here. And it's going to create a first report of injury that automatically brings in all of the information that you put in on the incident reporting. And you can print that, you can email it right into PDF format, whatever you want to do with that. But it's there for you to be able to submit your workers' comp claim at the same time. So I kind of like that. It's a very simple product. The other thing that I want to show you, if we go back to viewing your logs, all of those 3 claims are going to be funneled into your 300, which is right here. You click that. There's your 300. Again, you can email it. You can print it to PDF, print it to your printer so that you can post these right in your workplace. Same with the 300A. You're able to do that there. You're also able to go into edit your incidents. It'll tell you, you'll be able to update the average number of employees here. Again, intuitive. How do I calculate the average number of employees? Right there at your fingertips. Very user-friendly. So the last thing I want to show you is the ability to transport this to OSHA. You're required to submit on March 2nd. So we're easily going to be able to click the data submission. And this is where it's going to be really intuitive to tell you what we need to send, which of those 2 locations is required to report and which is not. So we're going to click View Submission Dashboard. Step 1, it wants to know what year. So we're going to select 2021. Step 2, it's going to tell you this location here is required. That has between 20 and 249 employees. The executive office is less than 20. It's not required to do the electronic reporting. So all you have to do to get this up to OSHA is you hit review and confirm the data. It's going to ask you to approve it. If there's any issues with any of the forms that you filled out, the system's going to tell you that right here so that you won't be able to move forward. It's going to ask you to make corrections. You can go back. It'll take you right to where you need to correct. And then you come back to this point and you approve. And it will process this. And you are at Submit Data. And you're ready for submission. So typically it'll take about 24 to 48 hours. Once you submit your data, you'll get a response that it's complete and everything will be done. It'll create that CSV and it will automatically transmit that to OSHA on your behalf. And then everything will be stored here within OSHA Logs. So if you ever need to go back and reference it, it's there to go. So yeah, it's a great tool. We'll be sending out forms for you to fill out if you want to get signed up, and I highly recommend that you do. And if you have questions, just you can always reach out to us.
And Michael, I'll take Robin's question. In the Q&A, Robin asked, can you expand on how you can see the OSHA log updates as they're logged? Is that only if we have the Nulty system? Yeah, so OSHALogs.com is the system. And yes, that's where you're going to see exactly all those documents that Sue just went through. So If you don't have OSHALogs.com, as Sue just said, we'll send out a form. Feel free to sign up. Even if you're a prospect and you're not a Nulty customer, we'd still be happy to provide that to you at no cost, so you can get kind of an idea of what it's like to work with Nulty Insurance. So we'll be sending that out, and feel free to fill those out and we'll get you signed up on that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chad, for your knowledge and expertise. Sue, of course, yours too. One thing I just want to point out is that OSHA log system will all your prior history or all that data from prior years will be stored. So if you can imagine that OSHA inspector coming to your door, next week and saying, hey, let's see what you've submitted over the years, or let's see your 300, 300A, or 301. You log into that system, it's all right there at your fingertips from this year and prior years. So it just makes, as Chad talked about, having that data on hand makes that inspection go so much smoother. So just another benefit of that OSHA Logs program. So Chad or Sue, unless you guys have anything else, I don't believe I do. We thank you again for sitting in today, and please reach out with any questions. Again, you will be getting this presentation via email. We will also have the sign up form for OSHA Logs along with our information. So thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your week, and take care.